Hey viewers, yes, this video is going to be about weight loss, and I have been very uncertain as to whether or not I should do a video on this topic and discuss what's going on, but a couple of people have reached out and I half expected this and asked if everything was okay, if I was sick because I wasn't making videos, and some people had noticed the weight loss, so I am going to do a video to discuss what I've been doing, why. I'm hoping that it helps people. I will admit that, in various incarnations of my weight loss, if someone made a video like this, I would be super annoyed and wouldn't want to watch it. But I also feel in my journey, looking for information, looking for assurances, there wasn't a lot of information, or there wasn't good information. So I'm doing this. If this is something that's going to trigger you, and if you don't want to watch this, I 100% understand. Let's get into it. I have started a version of this video multiple times over the last 6 months. There was a part of me that, to hold myself accountable, I wanted to film it when I really started to push to lose weight in November. There had already been some results and things were kind of going along since the start of the pandemic, but I didn't feel like I had earned the right to discuss anything. But the thing that I want to start this video off by saying is, if you haven't been to a doctor in a while, and prior to November, it had been probably 10 years since I had been to the doctors, I hadn't gotten blood work. For the love of Christmas, go to the doctor and get some blood work. I put it off because I knew I was probably going to hear some things that I did not want to hear and I did not want to deal with. So I just ignored it. And that is not a good coping mechanism. And I really think it's important to start off by saying, however you feel about doctors, however you feel about medicine and the current medical state of America or the world, and whether or not they're pill pushers and all this other stuff, go to the doctors, get a baseline of what your blood work looks like, and start to understand if there's anything funky going on. And I think this is especially important as you hit your 40s. Yes, I'm an old man, I'm in my 40s. So in November, I finally bit the bullet and went to the doctors and got your standard array of blood work. And I did this because there were some events in my family, there were some medical events in my family that precipitated me wanting to get checked out. And also because I am in my early 40s, I am going to quickly need to be in some kind of medical system at 45, you have to get a colonoscopy. And I needed to figure that out too. So there was a multitude of things that were starting to bubble up that said I need to figure out how to get back into a regular medical checkup and medical network situation. If you have been watching these videos over the last 3 or 4 years, especially since the start of the pandemic, you may have noticed that I dropped a couple of pounds. Since the start of the pandemic, especially when early news of the pandemic started to get out and it said that people who are overweight are potentially more prone to problems, it scared me. And also the lack of access to medical facilities and doctors during the height of the pandemic was like, this is a bad combination and I need to start doing something proactively to manage this. It also didn't help that most of the gyms closed and I was always a very active gym goer. So at the start of the pandemic, I started to dabble with intermittent fasting and just trying to find ways of potentially dropping some pounds. And since 2000, March of 2000, when the pandemic started, I managed to drop about 50 pounds till November of 23. So between intermittent fasting, between doing a lot of walking, and again, I didn't have access to a gym and proper gym equipment, and my house is kind of small, just walking and fasting helped me drop like 50 pounds, which is great. And it took 3 years to do that. To properly tell this story, I need to go back to my childhood. As a child, I was always obese. I was always overweight. And this is the 1980s. And this was the height of the food pyramid. And if you want to lose weight, you eat more carbs and less fat. And that turned into, I used to eat pasta like every meal of the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if I didn't eat pasta, I would have cereal for breakfast. And my family wasn't super crazy into the soda, but the carbs, oh my God, the carbs. I mean, it was bread and pasta and cereal all the time. And then you find out later that maybe the carbs are a problem, and I think that the carbs are a problem for sure. But this precipitated through college and in my early 20s, very early 20s. And it got to the point where by the time I graduated college, I weighed over 400 pounds. And when I graduated college, I said something needs to change. And to make an extremely long story short, I went from like over 400 pounds and I lost 200 pounds. And I got down to what I thought was a good weight. I made a critical mistake around that time when I lost the weight. I thought I fixed myself. I thought that if I consistently exercised and worked out every day, and I could go back to kind of being a normal person, and I can eat like a normal person, or what one would assume a normal person would eat. And slowly but surely, I started to gain the weight back. And it took years and years, but I ballooned back up to well over 300 pounds again. Never quite tipped the scales at over 400, yay me, but it was over 300. And then life happens. You're buying your house, you're having a kid, you're working, and you let these things slip. And you're like, I will deal with this later. And that's what happened. Now, I will tell you, and I think it's an important thing to say, that I never stopped working out. From the point where I was 23, there has never been a week where I have not worked out at least 5 times in a given week. And the old adage that people say, you can't outrun a bad diet, is the most astute thing that anyone who's ever dieted or anyone who's ever tried to lose weight has ever said, because it is the truth. It doesn't matter how hard I push myself and how many times I've sprained something, pulled the back muscle, tore pectoral muscles. I always went back to it, and at the end of the day, right, it didn't really help me lose weight. It's the combination, and it's most specifically the diet, that has caused the most reaction and the most viable weight loss. So you have to start with the things that you are consuming. The working out is good for blood pressure and for your muscles and for your heart, and there's a multitude of health benefits. But if you're trying to address your weight, you have to address what you're putting into your body and what you're eating. After I got my blood work, and as you can imagine, being overweight, it's all of the things that you can imagine being overweight, the cholesterol, the triglycerides, the sugars, all of the things. I got freaked out. I was expecting it, but I still got freaked out when I got the results in November. And I said, I need to take this on a whole different level. And I cold turkeyed, and this was not at the doctor's advice. I want to be clear about this because he did warn me, but I cold turkeyed sugar and carbohydrates. I just stopped in November. I stopped like 2 days before Thanksgiving. I just cold turkeyed it. And heads up, my body revolted significantly. I started having these things called optical migraines. I did not know what they were the last time I lost weight. And I did a similar thing where I cut out carbs and sugar and whatnot. That did not happen. But again, you're in your 40s. I'm in my 40s. The body's not as resilient. There was definitely some freaking out that was happening as I was going through effectively a sugar detox. And I thought I was going to go blind. I thought, man, maybe because of all the fatness and the sugar, maybe I'm like developing glaucoma. I went to an eye doctor and they scanned everything and they're like, oh, you're okay. You have these weird optical migraine things. And they stopped within 3 weeks of me cutting the sugar out and sort of stabilizing what I was doing with my diet. If you don't know, you see zigzag patterns and floating things, and you can see, but you can't see anything. Your eyes can't focus on anything, or at least that was my experience. And that was super scary, and it really freaked me out. You probably don't care about any of the stuff that I just said, and you probably just want me to get to the gist of the video. How do you lose weight? And I'm going to give it to you simply. Don't eat sugar, don't eat carbohydrates, and you'll probably drop a whole bunch of weight. Whether you call it keto, or you want to call it carnivore, or Mediterranean diet, Mediterranean diet probably allows for more carbs. Whatever it is, the reality is sugar is the enemy, and just about any diet system or any nutritionary system is going to probably say that sugar is the root of most problems from a dietary and weight perspective. And sugar in all of its forms, right, tends to spike insulin responses in the human body, and insulin responses tend to cause weight gain. There's a great book by Dr. Fong. He's a kidney doctor. It's called The Obesity Code. He also did one about diabetes called The Diabetes Code. So you want to talk about all the science of that stuff. I'm not going to steal his material. A lot of the stuff that I was doing before I read the book, but it certainly tends to quantify a lot of the things that I did and the science behind it. And again, insulin and managing insulin responses is a very, very, very important thing to do when you're trying to manage your weight and your overall metabolic health. Another way to manage insulin responses is through fasting. And again, I was dabbling in fasting. I did not know what I was doing. A lot of what I had said over the last 3 years, it was, I was slowly losing weight. And I thought, okay, cool, this is working. But there was a part of me that said, maybe it's just because I'm cutting out a meal. I'm not eating breakfast anymore. I initially I would break my fast at 11, and I would try to be done eating by 6. So I would eat 2 meals. Most of the time I was just having like a protein shake for lunch, and then whatever was in the house for dinner. I was like, I don't want to be crazy. I'll just eat whatever is in the house, and whether it's pizza or a sandwich, it doesn't matter, right? That was like my one solid meal of the day. And it kind of worked, right? Again, I don't think that 50 pounds is anything to sneeze at, but it didn't really move the needle from the blood work perspective. There were still a bunch of problems. And again, I hadn't even known. But so by the time I got to the blood work, it was like, this isn't cutting it. And I was around 300 pounds in November. So even with the 50 pounds that I had dropped, I was still at the 300 pound mark, and that causes a lot of obvious problems. That obesity code book and other studies show that by fasting, it gives your body, and I am paraphrasing the hell out of this, but as you eat things, your body can get overwhelmed. So if you eat something extremely sugary or extremely carby, processed flours and processed carbohydrates, your body's going to basically turn that into sugar. So when it does that, it tends to freak out, and then kind of when it doesn't know what to do, it just dumps everything into fat. It'll just basically be like, I'm not going to process this. Your pancreas and your liver is just boom, I'm going to turn it into fat. And when you are overweight and you already have a bunch of fat, it just exacerbates that particular problem, because now you're having an insulin response and your body's just making more and more fat because it doesn't know what to do. And again, there's a lot more to it, and I am overly simplifying everything. And I am not a medical professional. It makes sense to me to understand it that way. So what you are ultimately trying to do is manage an insulin response that's occurring in your body, and the way that there are multiple tools that you can trigger that. And again, it could be exercising helps, fasting helps, not eating sugar helps, not eating carbohydrates helps, because again, anything that's a refined flour or refined carbohydrate, your body, it's just all of the nutrients are kind of milled out of there. So that's why your body reacts the way that it does, because it's basically like pure sugar. All of the things that your body has evolved to process things that have fiber in it and all these other things, it doesn't have to do any of that anymore, and it just instantaneously absorbs it and then turns it into fat. For all of the very kind people that stop me in the street when I'm walking my dog in my neighborhood, or you're a coworker and I'm going to sheepishly probably send you the link to this video when you're like, what did you do to lose weight? I cut sugar, I cut carbs. Do I work out like a fiend and try to exercise and move around? And it's not high impact? Yes, I do a lot of exercising right now, but I was doing a lot of exercising before. And there's a part of me that also says you have to really balance that out, because when you start to hit your 40s and 50s, you're going to start wearing things out. And I don't want to wear things out, because you need to keep this machine running. So exercise needs to be tempered, and that's why some of these fasting strategies that I've been deploying are appealing to me, because you are not exacerbating and stressing out the body as much, and there's not as much of a reliance. And then, to be perfectly honest with you, days that your knee hurts, days that your back hurts, days that you have the flu, you don't feel like you're completely at a loss. At least you can do something, and again, it's the fasting that can help offset some of the other things that may be happening. I should also say that when I initially started experimenting with fasting in the 2000s, in early 2000, during the pandemic, it took me 5 months to get acclimated to fasting. Not eating breakfast, and I'm always a morning working out person, so I would get famished. So waiting till 11 o'clock to eat, it took me 5 months to get okay with that. And I was very grumpy in the mornings until I could break that fast. Now, when I'm doing all day fasts, and I don't want to present this like some cult of fasting or anything like that. I'm interested in the science, and there seems to be things that work. So when I've been dabbling with not eating and eating one meal a day, and I think it has been helping. And to curb any kind of appetite concerns, because again, I am looking for food and my body's acclimated to it, and I want to eat after I work out. I've just been drinking black coffee, and I don't like black coffee. It frankly tastes like cat piss to me, and nothing that anybody says will probably change that for me. But I drink it, and it does help. It does kind of knock out the hunger pains until I can get to the end of the day. And I'm eating my meal at the end of the day, like normally around dinner time. And that's really more for social reasons. I could see the benefit of maybe eating in the morning and then like using whatever your natural movements are throughout the day to kind of burn that off. But this is what I'm doing, and that seems to be working at least right now. So why am I making this video? When I got my blood work, I really felt kind of hopeless, and I was scared about some of the things that I found out. And I went on the internet and I was looking at YouTube videos like, can you fix this? Can you turn these things around? And it's all inconclusive. And the reality is that when it comes to your health, there are no guarantees about anything. But I do want to look at this camera and look at you and tell you that there are definitely things that you can do to mitigate metabolic problems. So if you've been diagnosed with a pre-diabetes, if you've been diagnosed with full-blown diabetes, you can turn it around, right? And it starts with your diet. And I want to be really clear about that. And I want to be encouraging to you guys about that, because sometimes I was looking for videos that said exactly that, and you don't hear these things, or you get inconclusive answers. And it starts with the diet. And even if you go and look at some of the nutrition recommendations for some of these metabolic problems, the advice that the American Diabetes Association puts on their website for what a standard diet should be is absolutely horrible. If you have a diabetic condition, whether it's prediabetes or diabetes, especially type 2, I want to be clear about that. I don't know squat about type 1 and how to address type 1 issues, but if you're in the type 2 camp, one way or the other, dietary changes can help significantly, and it can help ultimately not need medication. And whether or not you want to call it a cure, whether or not you want to call it something is in remission, I don't think it matters, right? As long as you can do something with your own body to turn things around and to help heal some stuff up. Again, if you have to stay on a diet forever or close to forever, and you don't need to be on medication all the time, I think that's important. I can tell you with absolute honesty that I am on no medication right now. I'm not on statins. I'm not on any kind of, blood sugar medication. I am not on anything, and this is 6 months after I got those initial blood results, and blood results that I've gotten subsequently have been really good. But that also, I want to be clear, because I have lost a significant amount of weight before in the past, I'm greatly concerned about maintaining that and building structure and process within my life ecosystem to make sure that that is maintained. I do not want to slide back and have these problems again. This is a work in progress. And that's another reason why I was extremely hesitant to make this video, because I don't want to come off 6 months into this conversation as an expert. I don't want to come off as a know-it-all. I've lost a bunch of weight and then gained it all back. And doing that again freaks me out. But to duck your head and say, well, I'm just going to ignore this and hope it goes away, that's not an option. And let me also counterpoint something that I just said, because I was like, yay, I'm not on any meds. Aren't I wonderful? If you're taking medication and it's helping you achieve the right medical outcomes, whether it's a statin, whether it's Ozempic or whatever the other alternatives are, you do you, and good for you. If again, everything that I've read about like the Mounjaro and Ozempics and all that other stuff, it helps people. So I have this weird phobia about taking medication, and it's stupid. And I would have if it was offered to me. It wasn't, but I probably would have taken it, and I would have tried that stuff. So I don't want to knock people that are taking meds. You take the meds that you need to take to be healthy and to get this stuff under control. I was going to curse. The important thing is knowing what's going on and developing a plan to potentially improve it. And your immediate doctor may not be the right person, but don't disqualify doctors and medicine and all of that other stuff either, right? You may have to bounce around a little bit to find the right person that's willing to work with you and to maybe really understand. And you got to do a lot of your own research. It's your health at the end of the day. It's your body, it's your health, and you really need to be educated so you can have an intelligent conversation with these medical professionals and the people in your life. Also, shout out to my buddy Rob, who literally and patiently dealt with every single weird question that I had about all this stuff over the last 6 months. It's good to have medical professionals in your life. Rob, great nurse practitioner. Thanks for being my friend, buddy. This was a very long-winded video talking about myself and weight loss. And again, if I was on the other side of this camera watching this, I would be like rolling my eyes and be like, shut up. I really wanted to put this out there, not to toot my own horn. And that's kind of a weird thing too, this time around with this weight loss. There's really not ego about this. This was very much done for health reasons, and it's very health focused. So there are some nice net benefits, right? You know, I can fit in smaller pants and buy things off the shelf and blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to share this, so I don't know if the word is inspiration, but I'm hoping that it at least triggers, if you're looking for this type of information, if you want advice, it triggers you to go off and start searching, whether it's through the books that I mentioned, or, you know, there's a bazillion podcasts, about weight loss. And, you know, again, I'm not doing full-blown keto or carnivore. I'm definitely eating low carb and no sugar, but understanding the science behind that and why that is effective and why sometimes it isn't effective for certain people, right? You have to go out and do that research, and I'm hoping that this inspires you to do that if that's something that you need. I'm very apprehensive about putting this out into the world because I'm ultimately worried about failure. You may come back to this channel a year from now and see that I've gotten fat again. I don't know. I honestly don't know if that's going to be a thing. I really hope not, and I don't want that to happen for a variety of reasons. I really just want you guys, even though I don't know you, most of you, to think about your health and to be proactive about it. I wasn't, and I wish that I had the information from the last 10 years, even if it was gaining weight and losing weight and all of the trials and tribulations. I wish that I had some of these baseline biomedical pieces of information to understand how things have progressed and gone up and gone down. And I don't have any of that information. I have 10 years of a black hole. So please go to the doctor. Please get your the appropriate levels of tests. Stay on top of those things and be healthy. And I'm not going to say that I'm not going to bring this topic up again. I will show up periodically, and because it's part of my life and it's a part of what I'm doing with all of the cameras and all of the other things. And yes, I failed to mention earlier that, you know, if I'm struggling to come up with a topic for a video, and normally where I would just sit in front of a computer and just keep grinding until I came up with an idea and then filmed it, and, you know, 10 people might watch that video, right? Because it's not that good or whatever it is. I'd rather just spend 2 hours exercising or doing meal prep as opposed to doing a video. If I'm being perfectly candid, right? I've sort of shifted some of this attention around, and it's not that I don't like doing the videos. I like doing the videos. It's a fun hobby for me. But I'm not going to sit there and just, to keep up with the schedule, just grind to come up with an idea for a video. I'd rather just go do something else. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And to be candid with you guys, if I can incorporate some of the stuff that I'm doing, especially if it's going to help people, I will, because it kills a couple of birds with one stone. But I'm not going to just force a video for the sake of forcing a video. I wanted to make this video to let people know that I'm okay, and to say thank you for those of you that reached out. Also, again, there are people in my life that have had some medical issues the last couple of years, and I kind of just felt I didn't want to make anybody nervous, but I also don't want to overinflate my problems compared to some of the stuff that other people are going through. So be healthy. Go to the doctors, check in. If there's anything that I can answer, anything that I can do to share the information and experiences that I have as someone who has basically lost 150 pounds plus twice in my life, I know how to lose weight. We'll see if I know how to keep it off. But thank you for watching these videos. And again, just be healthy, people. Be healthy and take care.